President Donald Trump said over the weekend that the firings of federal workers are underway as the shutdown nears the close of its first week. Whether that is happening and whether that is legal, the subject of a dispute that is expected to be resolved in court, that is, if the government doesn't reopen first. And joining me now to talk about it all is Debra, an attorney and founding partner of Federal Practice Group, which specializes in the employment of federal government workers. Thanks so much for being here, Counselor. We appreciate your perspective. So the Trump administration announcing these layoffs, two questions. Is that actually the case as far as you know? And secondly, is it legal?
Well, so we did see some smaller reduction in force notices go out last week when the shutdown started. And then President Trump announced, late Thursday onto Friday that there would be several more coming, but it doesn't look like that's happened yet, so far as I've heard anyway. So I think now folks are wondering, is this coming this week, or is this sort of like the tariff thing where it's like they're coming, but maybe it's really a negotiating tool. It's really terrifying for federal employees to be sitting at home, not knowing if they're going to get this piece of paper that says they'll be separated soon or not. So I guess spinning back to the second question, is this all legal? And I think this might be a big reason why this hasn't happened yet, is because no, it does not appear to be legal to separate federal employees by a reduction in force when there's a temporary lapse of appropriations, what we have now, which is why the government is shut down. So, a budget shortfall, if Congress ever passed a budget, could be a legitimate reason for a federal agency to use the RIF regulations. But with a case of a temporary lapse, the law calls for what's called a furlough, which is now oddly a common word in our vernacular, I guess. But that means some federal employees are sitting at home without getting paid. Some federal employees are having to work and still not get paid while the shutdown goes on. But if Congress does pass a budget or at least a continuing resolution, then those folks would be put back to work and under the current law would get back pay.
What recourse do you have? In other words, if someone is told that he or she is being let go and that person's paycheck is withheld, it could be months before a court finds that the firing was illegal, and then even longer before all appeals are exhausted. So does this firing ever become a de facto firing because the person doesn't end up returning to work?
So the federal government, just like big businesses in this country, need to give 60 days notice before a reduction in force. With private companies, it's 60 days notice before a mass layoff. But so they are going to have to give notice. And then once a federal employee is separated, they do have the right to file an appeal with what's called the U.S. Merit Systems Protection Board, which is an administrative body that hears these sorts of appeals from federal employees who are losing their jobs. So some of the unions for federal employees are suing in court. But federal employees, unlike private sector employees, can't just waltz into court and sue for wrongful termination. They have to take advantage of these administrative remedies the law created. But we do think it's going to be a very long time before these issues are resolved. Right now the MSPB that hears these appeals is shut down because of the government shutdown. So even if folks wanted to appeal, there's no place to appeal right now. So it doesn't look like this will be resolved anytime soon, unfortunately.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Debra, the attorney and founding partner of Federal Practice Group. Thanks so much. We really appreciate your time. Yet